So this is another stuff I own, and in this case, it's one of my Japanese robot figures. And this one I received in the mail just a few days ago, so I thought I would show it off. The Japanese robots are something that are very, very important to me. I just love them so much. This is one of the more modest ones I've bought. This one came in a two-pack with another robot, and between the two of them, they were close to $200. But for a $100 figure, single figure, that's pretty modest. I've got figures that are in the $300 and $400 range. So I will show some more later if people have interest in it. This one is Venus A from a show called Great Mazinger, and it's for the 50th anniversary, which means it came out in the early 1970s. It's a very popular, influential show. It came on the heels of a show called Mazinger Z, and that also featured a female robot. So now, mind you, this is what is called a piloted robot. In other words, there is a human pilot, although it is a humanoid shape. It is no more sentient or aware than a car or a boat or anything. It is purely piloted, and so this robot in the animation would be listed at 16 and a half or 16 meters, or about 17.5 yards, or the height of a four-story building. Now, the main piloted robot in this show was Great Mazinger, which was piloted by a male pilot. She was kind of secondary. The pilot was named Jun Hano, who was an interesting character and a real rarity in that she was biracial in the early 70s, and she was Japanese and African. And so there actually was at least one episode where she dealt with it. She was somewhat embarrassed of her darker skin tone, which was understandable because she grew up in Japan and was teased a lot as a child. So it was kind of an interesting aspect to her character for the early 1970s. Now, what's kind of humorous about this character and the other, just about every female robot character from this series and from a lot of series, is you could notice on there the prominence of the breasts. And so these are actually breast missiles. They will fire, and so there are buttons back here that will fire them. And if you are not satisfied with this size breast missile, they actually have a larger one. Then they have this one can be put in there in the case where it's fired. It's showing that it's fired. Now, the first robot that I know this is really silly. The first robot that included these, and I think they're called like Apai missiles or whatever. But the first character with the Apai missiles was the original female pilot named Sayaka Yumi, and she piloted Aphrodite A. And she also had breast missiles. And so, but what makes it even more humorous, and it wasn't played as a joke, it was like that was her weapon. What was more humorous about it was that the robot was designed by her father. So he decided. Now, for whatever reason, the male robots never have breast missiles. They have all sorts of weapons, but that is not one of them. Unfortunately, the Japanese, they can both be very progressive in the sense that they have a lot of strong female characters, and at the same time, not so progressive. So, for instance, with Sayaka, the male pilot often made fun of her lack of endowment. And in the case of Jun Hano, she was a bit more up top, and the characters would notice that. So I will get off that topic, other than to say that the Japanese oftentimes have a very different view of the world than a Western audience, and not just with this stuff. There's other stuff, and that's why a lot of the animation that comes over to the United States gets a little bit censored. Sometimes with violence, but other times with things that in the U.S. or in the Western countries might be considered to be inappropriate for children, whereas in Japan they are not considered inappropriate. But when these cartoons came over to the West, they included all of the female weaponry. So this figure actually is a remake for the 50th anniversary from a figure that came out in 2002. So it is a 23-year-old design. And if you look on the back here, you can see all of these screw holes in here. The screws, a modern or a robot figure from now wouldn't show all these screw holes. This is almost entirely metal. So the missiles are not metal, the head is not metal, but all of the joints, the exterior, the hands are not metal. But there is a ton of metal around here. And so it is a very simple design, given the fact that it's 23 years old, but it is effective. It is very nice. I love the coloring on here. This is a very, very nice figure, high end. So you expect all of the paint to be vibrant and not to have any paint slopping around at all. Now she would be piloted. Jun Hano would fly up in this ship, and then so this will give you kind of an estimate of how large this robot is considered, because Jun Hano would be in. Oh, I can't focus on that. Jun Hano would be in this vehicle. Then she would attach with the robot, and then pilot the robot. And so again, she was considered a strong female character, but just like with Sayaka, her robot was basically a punching bag, and the female robots were constantly getting just manhandled by the evil robots, and until the male pilot in their vehicle would come along and save the day. So it was unfortunate, and I kept hoping with Sayaka and June. I'm like, come on, give them a time to shine. Let them shine. I mean, it's not that they were useless, but they were so much weaker. And unfortunately, particularly with Sayaka, they specifically made the robot, her father made the robot to be much weaker, because he didn't want the robot as what his argument was, he didn't want the robot as a weapon of destruction. He wanted it more of an ambassador of peace. So then why was he sending her into battle constantly? So he's sending her into battle with a very weak robot getting constantly pounded on, because he didn't want it to be a weapon of destruction. It didn't make any sense, but unfortunately, the male character would be constantly saving the day. But I do like the designs. I do think that they are really nice. I like the color scheme of it, the red and the gray, or like off-white and the kind of purplish. I think it works really well. And I have 6 what could be considered female robot from this line, which is the Bandai Sola Chogokin. So the Sola Chogokin figures are basically in scale, or they're all about 6.5 inches. They wouldn't necessarily be in scale with the anime. So, for instance, she is supposedly 16 meters, but there's other robots out there that would be considered significantly taller, but they're in scale in the sense that they're all about 6.5 inches, 7 inches tall. So they wouldn't be in scale with regard to the animation, but they are in scale next to each other. So anyway, that is the first robot I'm showing, but I would like to show more if people have any interest in it. I think these are really, really spectacular figures, and certainly something from my childhood that I enjoyed. So that is Venus A from Great Mazinger.